What would happen if China decided to cash in all of their current U.S. bonds, and how would this impact the U.S. dollar?
It's a great question. It's one of those questions that I don't think ever would happen, but if hypothetically it did, it would also have a negative impact on Japan as well. So it would levy our stock market. It would have an impact on our dollar, but it will have an impact as well on the trade agreements and how they offset losses from importing and exporting as well. So like it's kind of like a mutually assured destruction. There's no really real incentive for China to do that at this moment. Even if they're upset at us, you can't just flood the market with bonds that no one at this point wants to buy. I can see if there was a buyer, and even with BRICS, with them trying to form an alliance, if they're going to sell off our debt, I don't see anyone in BRICS acquiring all of that debt to help China when they're forming their own alliance. So it's kind of like an argument like, what if all the gold on Earth disappeared, or if every dollar disappeared on Earth and we went all digital? Sometimes we have to prepare for the worst case scenario, but there is like a poison pill inside of this if China does end up letting all of our bonds on the open market, and they won't have enough buyers for them. Will it have an impact on the dollar? The dollar's been dying since we got off the gold reserve, the gold standard, excuse me. So that would not be the death of it per se. Inflation, I think, and quantitative easing has done more destruction to our dollar, more so than China letting the bonds on the market ever could.
Okay. So shares of Alibaba fell 3% after the outgoing CEO unexpectedly quit the cloud business. What impact will this have on the stock market and overall economy?
Troy, I'd love to get your insight on this, but when I saw this, my first thought was when someone leaves a mega power, and we can argue pound for pound, Alibaba may be better than Amazon. For him to just walk away, this is not a good sign. It tells me that something is coming down the line in the next couple of years, kind of like when in 2020 we saw a bunch of CEOs starting to leave. It tells me that things in China are not going to get better anytime soon. We may have like a 3 year period where things are really rough. Like if all of a sudden, if like Rob Pelinka just left and certain people that are key play, like if Dion left Colorado tomorrow, I'm like, woo, what happened? It's the same kind of impact. And meanwhile, China is like the major linchpin in this investment environment. Like they are, for all my investors and traders, think of China as a market maker. And every company inside of China that are big players, if they start to walk away, they'll never tell the real reason because they can't. But that is a sign of distress.
Yeah, I think you're spot on with the distress. It's like it's a distress signal. First, he was the CEO and chairman. He stepped down. His initial plan was to be the head of the Ali Cloud, and he stepped down from that. So that just happened like out of nowhere, right? Because it was like, all right, I'm gonna take a lesser position, but he's even now left a lesser position. So in March, and this is why I say it's a sign of distress. In March, Alibaba split into 6 businesses, which got me thinking about some U.S. companies that
should,
if they split into 6 businesses. I know you brought up the wearables and just what they would do. But the reason they split up was they wanted to have them have a clear path to raise outside funding and take those individual businesses public. When I hear raising funds, when I hear division and create, that tells me that we're trying to get more income because what we're doing now is not sufficient enough as a company. And so him leaving, number one, puts that in jeopardy, right? Because when you talk about companies and why people want to invest in them and they want to be a part of it, the first thing that we look at is leadership. And if this company is preparing to go public, and I'm speaking of Ali Cloud, because that's one of the 6 divisions, they don't have a leader right now. How do you pitch this now to potential investors? So it doesn't help. And it also doesn't help the 5 other divisions of Alibaba. But it's an interesting concept. Of saying we're one ecosystem, like we spoke about earlier. Saying, hey, what if we created divisions and each division went public? What could that do for the revenue of the company as a totality?
Well, when a government structure is a lot different than ours, and there's a lot that the focus in China is more so on real estate, it's really tough. Like every other business, I feel like Jack Ma tried to push, they blocked. So I think the same thing would happen here. I think it's a great idea to break them up into divisions. Like even if Google spun off YouTube, I think YouTube could be a powerhouse on the stock. Like that would be a game changer. It would destroy typical media. It would put a lot of pressure on Netflix and HBO Max and Disney. But I think the powers that be don't want that at this time until there is a like official change under the guard. And the same as in China. Like I feel like they've been thwarting the growth of a lot of these companies. And let's be clear, if Xi Jinping was not upset and Jack Ma didn't have to take the little vacation, I think Alibaba would have been, it's maybe 4 companies in China that I think would have been in that top 7 that probably would have taken out some of the American stocks. But when you have a regime that wants absolute control at all costs, this is the downside of it. But also when you want the exuberance of America, it was just bad misjudgment. I mean, I know I talk a lot about Biden's leadership, but there's been a lot of mismanagement over the last 4 years in China of trying to control things too fast while trying to grow too fast. And they just made some incredible mistakes. So until Alibaba price goes up, I don't see things in China being a lot better. Evergrande's already falling apart, like I talked about a couple years ago. Country Garden's in trouble. There's a couple other players that are in trouble. So do your homework, do your research. But until Alibaba, I look at them as a linchpin the same way I would as Apple in America's stock market and America's economy.
Yeah, there's similar characteristics to an Amazon. When you look at the divisions, you got a media group, you have a digital commerce group, a logistics group, the cloud group we just referenced, and a service group. So it has those foundations. But like you said, when you're dealing inside of a government,
it's tough.
It makes it real tough. And I just want to say that I love how you referenced that Jack Ma had to go on vacation.
Jack, if you're ever in Mexico, let's hang out. Have a little drinks on me.
the disappearing act, that was Jack Ma. That was, yeah, that was interesting.